Welcome to Beekeeping Today podcast presented by Bee Culture. Beekeeping Today podcast is your source for beekeeping news, information, and entertainment. I'm Jeff Ott.
And I'm Kim Flatham.
Hey, Jeff and Kim. Today's sponsor is Global Patties. They're a family-operated business that manufactures protein supplement patties for honeybees. It's a good time to think about honeybee nutrition. Feeding your hives protein supplement patties will ensure that they produce strong and healthy colonies by increasing brood production and overall honey flow. Now is a great time to consider what type of patty is right for your area and your honeybees. Global offers a variety of standard patties as well as custom patties to meet your needs. No matter where you are, Global is ready to serve you out of their manufacturing plants in Airdrie, Alberta, and in Butte, Montana, or from distribution depots across the continent. Visit them today at www.globalpatties.com.
Thanks, Sherry. You know, each week we get to talk about how much we appreciate our sponsor support. They help make all of this happen and provide us the ability to bring you each episode. They help bring things such as transcripts and all the technology behind the podcast and all the servers that it takes that we have to serve and put everything on. So it takes their help to get our information to you. So thank you. With that, thanks to Bee Culture Magazine for continuing their presenting sponsorship of this podcast. Bee Culture has been the magazine for American beekeeping since 1873. Subscribe to Bee Culture today. We also want to thank 2 Million Blossoms that sponsor this episode. 2 Million Blossoms is a quarterly magazine dedicated to protecting all pollinators. Learn more on our Season 2, Episode 9 podcast with editor Kirsten Trainer and from visiting www.2millionblossoms.com, and that is with a number 2. And also check out her new 2 Million Blossoms, the podcast, also available from her website and from wherever you download and stream your shows. Hey, everybody, thanks for joining us. We're so happy you're here. Hey, Kim, how's your summer ending here?
Let's see, it was 92 days ago, yesterday and today. Yesterday it rained 1.1 inches. Wow. The humidity is 140%. That's been a lot of our summer. It's been wet and hot. And, you know, for some things it's really good. And for me, it's not. But there you go. The garden's doing good, and that counts, so. But it's been warm and it's been hot, and it's been enough rain that it's been kind of interfering with some of the stuff the bees are doing, but they're doing pretty good. And goldenrod is just starting to peak.
Oh, wow. I haven't smelled goldenrod in a long time.
No, we haven't had enough of it to smell in the hives yet. But I hope by, this weekend, It should be out there every night.
That is always fun. You're talking about all the weather that you haven't, and we're here drying up. We haven't had rain since June, of all things. Remind me of that fact in November when I'm whining and complaining about all the rain we've had, and of course California and parts of Oregon and Idaho are all burning up. Global warming is really a challenge for all of us
in different ways, but yep, it is. And I don't know if I like hot and wet better than hot and dry, but since I don't have hot and dry, I guess I'll settle for what I got.
That's right. I don't think you have a choice.
I think you're right. Yep.
Well, coming up this fall, Bee Culture is presenting the Ohio Bee Conference, Being Diverse, Inspiring Leaders in Beekeeping, October 1, 2, and 3. That's shaping up to be a pretty cool conference, 3 days of presentations.
Yeah, check out the webpage. You can see the speaker list and getting registered and all of the information that you'll need to be there. And I don't think you're going to want to miss this one. It's, I've been talking with Jerry about it, speaking of which, who's our guest today. Mm-hmm. I've been talking to Jerry about it, and so far it looks good.
Yeah. No, I look forward to being there and hearing the speakers. So what's going on Honeybee Obscura? You guys are just...
Jim got a call, and probably every beekeeper who's listening to this has had this call at least once. He says, a neighbor calls and says, "I got bees over here. Can you come over and help?" And, 10 million things go through your head. What kind of bees? Are they hornets, yellow jackets, this time of year, bald-faced hornets? Are they my honeybees? Was there a swarm that went out last spring and they took up residence on the side of that? What am I going to see when I get over there? And then what do I do? And what's my liability? And we talked about, what we talked about was that experience. And it's kind of a negative. It can be a kind of a negative experience. If you enjoy removing bees from the side of a house, taking them apart and putting them back together, that's one thing. I don't, but if you've got, you can't just plug up a yellow jacket nest hole on the side of your house, because they're going to get out somewhere and it's going to be a light fixture in your dining room. So you got to help them. And then if you get up on a ladder and something happens, or you tell them what to do and they get up on a ladder, and it's messy. And we kind of explore all of the aspects of messy.
Well, I look forward to that episode, and that's on Honeybee Obscura, and it comes out every Thursday, wherever you download and stream your podcast. Well, Kim, this is going to be a great episode with Jerry Hayes. Jerry Hayes took over your role at Bee Culture Magazine after your 33 years?
33.
33. Wow. And that's fantastic. And so we're going to be talking as part of our two-part series. Last week, we talked to Eugene Mekovic from American Bee Journal, and this week with Jerry Hayes from Bee Culture Magazine, just talk about perspectives of the world and the bee world as they see it, of those journal editors.
And what both of them have brought to the chair. Eugene had that background in journalism and printing. He brings that to the chair. Jerry's got the product manager at Dadant. He was an apiary inspector in Florida, and then he was working on that Varroa Mite control. So he brings a whole different set of experiences to the chair. I know I've talked to him a lot about this a lot of times before he came on board, so I am kind of familiar with what he's going to tell us, but not all of it.
All right, well, let's get right into that talk with Jerry. But first, a quick word from our friends at Strong Microbials.
Hello, beekeepers. Your honeybees face a lot of challenges out there. Unbalanced food sources from monoculture crops, holding yards, drought, food shortages, antibiotics, pesticides, and pathogens like chalk brood. To overcome these challenges, your bees need the multiple bacteria that are in all nectars, pollens, and the environment. These bacteria aid honeybees' digestion and improve your honeybees' response and resilience to pesticides. Now you can help improve your honey colony health with a quick, easy, and safe-to-use product. Strong Microbials Super DFM Honeybee uses naturally occurring bacteria to restore the healthy gut biome of your honeybees. Check them out today at www.strongmicrobials.com.
Hey, and while you're at the Strong Microbial site, make sure you click on and subscribe to The Hive, their regular newsletter full of interesting beekeeping information and product updates. Hey, everybody, welcome back. Sitting across the table from us right now is Editor-in-Chief Jerry Hayes. Welcome, Jerry.
Oh, thank you so much, Jeff. This is quite an honor, and I hope I don't mess it up. Thank you.
It's good to see you again, Jerry.
Hey, Kim, how you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Hey, Jerry, you're our presenting sponsor. I will never tell you messed it up. You're doing a wonderful job.
It's all about money, isn't it, Jeff?
Yeah.
I've become accustomed to eating.
It's good to do that a couple times a day, you know?
Yeah. You like something better than ramen noodles, right, Kim?
I've never had a ramen noodle. Never once. So, Jerry,
Yes.
relatively new editor of Bee Culture Magazine, sitting in the chair that I used to sit in. How does it feel?
Oh, to back up a little bit, one, I never expected this opportunity or be there or to sit in the chair of the office that you occupied for 33 years, I think it was, and did such a marvelous job. So, when I first had the opportunity, and I'm not embarrassed to say this, I was, overwhelmed and a little scared and, wanted to do a great job. But going on 2 years now with all the help from Kathy and Jean and Amanda and you and others, I've hit, not maybe a perfect stride, but a little bit of a stride, and it's fun. Finding topics, finding authors, people with different voices, trying to make the product better. So it's being fun, and I learn something every day, and I appreciate everybody's patience.
Well, that's good to hear, and it's good to hear that you're having fun. But I'll tell you what, for those 3 or 4 individuals out there that don't know your background, where did bees come into your life?
Okay, all right. Now, if I hear you start snoring in this, I'll have to speed it up. But
well, hit the highlights. Hit the highlights.
No, I'm good. No, if you're asking me, I'm going to give you the whole deal, buddy. So this is the Jerry story. This is I started out in life as a high school teacher and hated it. Just wasn't. Well, I had thought I was going to be a high school teacher and save the world, and it turned out I couldn't do that. And so I went into another business.
Well, excuse me. Where were you a teacher?
I was in Brooks County High School in Quitman, Georgia.
All right.
And so from there, I went into another business, commercial plastics and supply, and had a guy working with me, Tom Burnish, who was a beekeeper. He and his brother. And I thought, well, God, this was 100 years ago. I thought, well, this is like super cool. Everybody knows about honeybees, but nobody actually knows a beekeeper. And so I picked his brain, at lunchtime and what have you, and stories he told me and things. And then, I would ask him more questions. And this went on for a few weeks. And then I started reading things and oh my gosh, becoming more involved, that crazy passion that beekeepers get. I don't know why. It must be genetic or something. Why? But reading and doing and what have you. And then I became the consummate backyard beekeeper. I did all the crazy things. I made I made a Kenya top bar hive. I did bottom board. I did everything hobby beekeepers do, because it was to be introduced to an insect. I mean, to have this insect and a human basically partner with each other, an insect that will hurt you, is amazing. It's still amazing to me. Every day is amazing. So became the consummate backyard beekeeper and did things and what have you. And then after a while, I thought, this is really cool. That passion had really grown. Could somebody actually make a living doing this and take care of a family? Mm-hmm. And at the time, there were 2 beekeeping educational opportunities open. One was up in Canada in the Peace River area, and one was at OSU ATI in Wooster. And I got into the Wooster one first. And so we loaded up the car and had a first son who was probably about 18 months old. We got in the car and the trailer behind it and drove to Wooster. And this was under Dr. Jim too. And so in Jerry's list of smart things that Jerry has done, which is pretty short, this was probably, 3 or 4 on that list down there to be able to do that and to do it with Jim too, who everybody knows is amazing in himself. I learned so much. He was so helpful. He had so many contacts. And from there, I went on to the USDA Bee Breeding and Stock Lab in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And that's when Africanized bees were going to be coming across the border. And so we were learning how to measure venation in wings and do morphometrics so we could identify them. And then Dadant and Sons offered me a job as regional manager in Michigan. and they actually paid more than USDA. So I went there and did that for about a year. And then strangely enough, John Root offered me a job selling the bee supplies in Medina. And I kind of waved that in front of the Dadant people. And they said, why don't you come down to the home office and, do something? And so I went down to Hamilton. And another amazing thing, my office was next to Joe Graham's, who at the time was editor of American Bee Journal. And Joe let me start writing the classroom, the question and answer section in the ABJ. And started that. And I think I had the world's record so far, I think at about 40 years or so for doing that before I went to bee culture. And I did product development and what have you. From there, I was offered the job, and there's a story to everything. I was offered the job at the Florida Department of Agriculture as the chief of the apiary section for them. And we moved to Florida and worked on that. And one of the things that I was able to do was to be on the selection committee for Dr. Jamie Ellis at the University of Florida. It was right next to our offices there in Gainesville, Florida. And that was a great opportunity. And then Jamie and I worked on a company from Israel, Biologics, that was working on a biological, an RNAi method of perhaps controlling Varroa. We did that for a couple of years. And then Monsanto, who everybody hated, bought Biologics. And they offered me a job as the honeybee health lead on this RNAi project at Monsanto. So I was there for, 8-9 years. We couldn't make it work. So I was looking around for something else to do because I just didn't want to coast at Monsanto. And Bayer was going to buy them and what have you. And then Kim decided to retire. And I don't know how all that happened. It's all kind of a blur now. But now I'm sitting in Kim's chair and having fun.
I've actually seen that chair. I hope you're in a new chair.
No, it's the original chair, because I thought that perhaps, dandruff or sweat or something from there would have some information with it that would somehow get into my body and my brain, and it would help me out.
I guess I didn't leave enough behind, huh?
No, you didn't. Oh my God.
That's great.
Well, that's a quite a journey, and lots of beekeepers have those kinds of journeys, but yours is relatively spectacular. You've touched a lot of bases, a lot of different parts of the industry.
I think it's really cool that you've done a full circle, or you completed one circle, and that you're back working with Jimmy too, Dr. Tu, who's also works with Kim and us on the Honeybee Obscure podcast.
Yeah, it's this journey, Jerry's journey in beekeeping. When you look back, to me, it's amazing. Most of those things shouldn't have happened. Been able to travel the world, work with, government and industry and corporations, and co-author papers and be on, association boards, and just a whole plethora of things that just makes me smile, because it's what I like to do. And so I've had that opportunity. It's just amazing.
Well, the other half of liking to do it is the fact that you've got all of those contacts in the industry, which very often solves a lot of problems. You don't know the answer to a question, but you know 5 people that do, and 3 of them will write about it, which makes life even better. So I was sort of in that position, not as broad as yours, but I understand the value and appreciate the value of being able to reach out and touch someone who knows more and is smarter than I am, so that I can share it with the readers.
Yeah, no, and I think you're absolutely right, because I think being an editor in particular requires you to be humble, because you don't know everything, and you do need to rely on other people. And so being editor of a magazine, it doesn't make you a star, nor do you want to be the star. You want to be able to manipulate the stars so that they shine the best, in this particular offer in this particular magazine.
That's a good way to put it. I hadn't quite thought about it that way, but that's a lot of what I did.
Yeah,
And,
no, you did. And for 33 years. And yeah, you were bee culture, and you did a marvelous job.
Well, I'll thank you for that.
Better Bee is pleased to sponsor today's episode of Beekeeping Today podcast. For over 40 years, Better Bee has supplied beekeepers across the country with the tools, equipment, and knowledge needed to succeed. Because many Better Bee employees are beekeepers themselves, they understand your needs and challenges and are better prepared to answer your beekeeping questions. From their colorful catalog to their support of beekeeper educational activities, including this podcast, Better Bee truly lives up to their tagline of beekeepers serving beekeepers. See for yourself at betterbee.com.
You know, one of the things, now that you've got this, after a couple of years, you've got it, I'm going to say relatively under control, because even after 30 years, I didn't have it under control.
No, you never do. Yeah.
Relatively under control.
Yeah. What's
the best part of what you do every day?
For me, I'm not the English teacher from hell. I'm more of an entrepreneurial thing. And so for me, looking at, and you had this too, you get all these magazines from around the world, and I like to look at them and see what they're writing about and topics and what have you. And I've been able, you probably have seen this, I've been able to find some really cool ones and then ask, the German Bee Journal or the one in England or what have you, can I reprint this? Or the one from Canada, may I reprint this? And we're such a small industry that I never wanted to think that our writers or any writers I found were the only ones around. Because there are so many smart people, good writers with different voices who are able to share these ideas that let that light bulb go on over your head, or I want to try this or something interesting. Because that's what I want for readers, is for something to connect them to beekeeping, the rest of the world, and to find energy in that,
and to be able to solve problems.
Yep.
I think I think one of the things that I enjoyed maybe the most was being able to find answers to questions for people that I didn't have, but we could find somebody else, like we said before.
Yeah, and and beekeeping is like everything else. We don't know everything about honeybees, and we'll probably never know everything. Honeybees are not like a herd of black Angus in a field that everybody knows the bull and all that thing, or chickens or what have you. We have so much inconsistency genetically in honeybees that these pest predators, diseases, management options, seasons, what have you, are slightly different everywhere, because honeybees are not going for the home run. They're not genetically going for it. They want to get on base. And that's how they survive, is just genetic diversity that allows them to survive basically from pole to pole. And we beekeepers are pitting our 2-pound brain against one the size of period at the end of the sentence. And most of the time they win. They're just tolerating us because we give them an empty box to live in. But it's amazing.
It is. Coming at this from a different way, you started bees with Jim 2 down in Wooster, Ohio.
Yeah.
And now you're essentially back with Jim 2 in Wooster, Ohio, just up the road in Medina.
Right.
In the beekeeping industries that you've been a part of, what's changed the most and what hasn't changed?
I think what has changed the most, and this has probably happened over the last 30 years since Varroa was introduced, and there's been more awareness of the importance of honeybees, and perhaps a little bit more money to give to researchers to look at honeybees. that we do have so many researchers who now have had the time and money and effort and students to do significant research on honeybee health and directions. What hasn't changed, I think, is that honeybees are still the ugly stepchild of agriculture in general. We are responsible for a tremendous amount of food production in production agriculture. We are in a tremendous position, and I've never seen any numbers on this of, our honeybees are out foraging in that 2.5 mile radius, not only visiting, these crops or somebody's backyard, but out in the environment, pollinating these plants and trees and what have you that are reproducing in the woods, in the fields, and the roadsides, and all these other kind of stuff. And people, just expect us to be there. It's kind of like contract pollination, almonds. The bees show up, and 3 weeks later they leave, and the bees aren't doing well, and they're dying, and the commercial beekeeper splits and divides to make up those losses. And then, they show up next year for the 3 weeks because they're an overhead. They're a production overhead, not only different than, chemicals or pesticides or fertilizers or water. And that's the thing that bothers me is people know about us, but I don't know that they appreciate us the way I would like them to.
That's an interesting perspective. I agree with you on that. A lot of that makes sense, and that kind of makes me want to ask, what's the part of beekeeping that has changed, that has made the most difference? Do you think? I know a lot of things have changed, but what's I mean, you've been a product manager, and you've been an inspector, and you've been a researcher. So you come at it from a lot of different directions. What's the thing that's made, maybe I should say, the best difference?
Yeah, the best difference, and I think that beekeepers, we as beekeepers at all levels have been challenged by the Varroa Mite. And that has brought, in some cases, more focus, more perspective on honeybee health. Because when I started beekeeping a long time ago, and I remember one of the first beekeeper meetings I went to, and there was a semi-commercial guy there. I remember this distinctly. He had about 200 colonies, and he introduced me. He introduced himself to me, and I told him I was a new beekeeper, and he said, this is the easiest job I've ever done because I can keep bees and go hunting or fishing the rest of the year. And you can't do that anymore. You have to be on your game. You have to be smarter than I was when I started beekeeping if you're going to be a successful beekeeper, whether it's backyard or commercial, having thousands or what have you. And so I think this realization of honeybee health in this way, even though we haven't figured it out exactly, has brought smarter people to the beekeeping world.
That brings up a good question, is the level of education that is available to beekeepers now. I know when I started, it was, I'm going to say, where I was at, it was relatively minimal. There may be a local club, but how many master beekeeper courses are available today, that sort of thing. So I think the level of beekeeping and certainly the journals have played a big role in that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I think, not only bee culture, but, I wrote for ABJ for a long time. And I think that those as educational outreach tools are excellent. And, tagged so many of the beekeepers, and we have the master beekeeper programs, and we have all the state and local associations. But, and this is where I'm going to step my foot right in the middle of it, I think the worst thing that's happened to beekeeping is the second-year beekeeper who's now the world's expert and has a website and a podcast and everything else, and is telling people that, you control Varroa with green jello, and everybody believes them. And I'm not quite sure why we have so many beekeepers, are spending their time in that way when we have so many vetted resources, universities and what have you.
That's a whole societal question there, though.
Well, that's a societal, tribal, cultural question,
Yeah.
and you're absolutely right. And the one of the problems is that honeybees are very tolerant until they're not, and that's when they spontaneously, a beekeeper will be a beekeeper and do all these crazy things, and then the bees die over winter. And then the beekeeper blames the farmer down the road or the lawn care person or something else. And so this is where the confirmation bias stuff comes in, where we only want to listen to people that, listen to us.
Yeah.
You mean green jello doesn't work?
Oh.
No, it's red jello, Tim, for goodness sakes.
Well, on that note, now's a great time to introduce our latest sponsor, Hive Alive.
Hive Alive is a liquid feed supplement for honeybees, and right now is the best time to feed it to your colonies. Hive Alive contains a blend of seaweed extracts, thyme, and lemongrass, a unique formula which improves bee gut health, resulting in more bees, honey, and improved overwinter survival. Now, Hive Alive has just launched their new fondant patty, which contains the correct dose of Hive Alive, vitamins, and amino acids, and comes in easy-to-use pouches which are great for giving to colonies over winter. Ask about Hive Alive at your local beekeeping store or visit the website www.usa.hivealivebees.com for more information.
You brought up a point, you brought up a lot of great points, but one of the things you've mentioned you haven't written for ABJ and the classroom column for how many years?
Right.
30 or 40 years or something?
Almost 40. Joe Graham sent me a thing, a couple of years ago that I forget who was before, but I had beaten their record. But talk about learning about beekeeping. I learned so much by just answering questions because, as Kim said, nobody knows everything. So when somebody would ask me a question, I would dig down and do some research and come up with whatever data showed at that particular time. So that was a great opportunity for me as well.
Well, what question during that period do you distinctly remember today? Which one either threw you for the biggest loop or impressed you the most?
And I'm going to tee off more people right now too. I think the thing that, and it sticks in my mind, is of course Varroa.
Mm-hmm.
3 words I want everybody to remember: Varroa, Varroa, Varroa. The issue is that most of the beekeepers now are, 50 plus years old. They read the Mother Earth News in 1975. The kids are grown and they sold the SUV. And now they want to save the world again with honeybees. And as a result, they are very environmentally aware. And so what they are doing is perhaps, not taking Varroa seriously and sampling and treating and all these kind of things. And then when the bees die, they blame someone else. Or they're on the web looking at, vaporizing some kind of acid to kill Varroa mites. And we all do this. We hear, here's a solution, but you don't look at the whole story. Vaporizing an acid in a beehive when Varroa is still hiding behind capped cells and isn't all exposed phoretic like it might be in January or February, the bee's nose is at its antenna. And so data show that vaporizing acids in a beehive damages the bee's nose after a couple of these treatments. And if you look on some of these websites, the person is saying, I vaporize an acid every, week or something like that. And so what happens is when bees, one of their communications techniques is odors. Is the queen there? Is the brood there? Is what's the pollen coming in? All these. So if you don't smell it's kind of like you, Jeff. You get a cold and you can't smell, and you come home, and your wife is cooking chocolate chip cookies in the oven, and you have no earthly idea that there's chocolate chip cookies in the oven because you can't smell them. And so that's what happens in a beehive. And that's why queens are replaced so often, is because the bees can't recognize it. And so there's all sorts of collateral damage by us beekeepers who are not looking deep enough and just doing the confirmation bias thing.
Interesting comments on vaporizing. I pretty much agree with that. I think I want to shift just a little bit, because being editor is your day job, but I know that you're on the boards of many organizations and advisors. What are some of the other things you're involved in?
Yeah, I'm science advisor for the PAM board. I'm on the HPA board. And one of the cool things about working for Monsanto was that, they wanted to become more engaged in the beekeeping industry. So they gave me some money, and we started the Honeybee Health Coalition with that. And so that's continued to go and grow and what have you. And so I participate in that as well. And so having those connections in the beekeeping industry, keeps me energized as well, because, you can sit in that office, and if you don't get out a little bit, you kind of get those blinders on, or the blinders get bigger. And so these are great opportunities to keep salient in the industry.
Gives you even a greater group of people to ask questions when you don't know the answer. And I would guess that most of those people that you're dealing with they're in the research world, right?
Yeah, most of them in the research world, or business, corporate world, in the industry. I remember the Apiary Inspectors of America, just because I was president of the organization at one time, and so I can interact with the inspectors and find out what they're seeing in the field and what's going on. And so all these things come funneling into me. Boy, it's sometimes great confusion.
Well, welcome to beekeeping. I think that's probably the best way to look at that. Is it's always confusing, but as long as you're headed in the right direction, basically. Well, what have we missed? What's the part of Jerry Hayes here that readers are would like to know about, or you'd like to share?
Golly, yeah. So I have a vegetable garden. I have a bunch of apple trees, and I'll tell you my apple tree story. I think this is kind of fun. The Hayeses came over from Ireland in 1823 to New Brunswick. And I don't know about the fires now. We've had so many fires. But there was a fire called the Miramichi Fire in New Brunswick that was at the time, or now maybe the second or third largest fire in the world. This was in November, and the fire drove the Hayeses out of Miramichi area, and they had to go to a place called Chaleur Bay, which is the bay separates New Brunswick from Quebec. And so they had to wade out with this baby son out into the water and get on a fishing boat and go across Chaleur Bay to a little town called Shigawak. And they spent the winter with friends of theirs and called the Sullivans. And when spring came, they decided to stay over there. So the Hayes Farm is over in Shigawak, Quebec, which is kind of Gaspé Peninsula area. Carl and Lois Hayes are the owners of the farm. They're getting a little bit old, but I was up there several years ago when there was, and this kind of stuff is just cool to me. The Hayes apple tree, it's one of those apple trees that you can just about put your arms around. So, it's kind of old. And it had apples on it. And so got some seeds and grew the seeds. And then my wife, Barb, knows people in horticulture a lot. So we took cuttings and they grafted it on dwarf and semi-dwarf rootstock. So I have all these Hayes apple trees on different rootstocks. And I just think that's kind of fun. I like that kind of stuff.
I'm gonna have to try one of those this fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Well,
Jerry Appleseed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Heck with Johnny. Let's go with Jerry.
Yeah, that's right. It's a J, right?
That's right.
I like that, Jeff. That's good.
Well, fantastic. Well, it's really been a pleasure having you on the show. And I say this, and we say this every episode. We appreciate our sponsor support. And Jerry, we really appreciate Bee Culture's continued support of the podcast. But regardless, we would have you on the show. Your background and your insight to the industry and to beekeepers all the way around is very important. We're glad to have you on.
Well, no, it's been a fun journey. And let me put in a plug, if I may.
Sure.
We have an event in October, October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd coming up called Being, BEE, Being Diverse Leaders in Beekeeping. And this is primarily a focus on all of the women leaders in the beekeeping world that are in business, are in research from all over the world. And I've actually invited too many of them here. But we're going to be having that in October. And we're going to have a couple talks from each of them. I think it's this type of event with this type of female leadership, I think is unique. And I'm really looking forward to being able to be a small part of that in October.
I'll be looking forward to that for sure.
So anyway, get on Bee Culture's website and go to store and event and sign up. We have limited seating, and so it's going fast. So we want to see you there.
Actually, I think I will be there.
Well, it's good to hear. Yeah, I'll be there.
Good.
I'll do whatever you need doing, Jerry.
Well, and and that's true, Kim. And everybody can always rely on you to do all these kind of things at whatever level. And so we always appreciate it. And thank you also, Jeff, for coming and maybe putting a marker in the ground for us.
We'll definitely do something. Well, Jerry, thanks for your time this afternoon. Really appreciate the work you're doing on the magazine, and I can't think of a better person in that role.
Well, no, I thank you for that. It's an honor for you to say that, and I've recorded that, so in case things go bad, I can replay.
Well, that and $3.50 will buy you a cup of coffee at Starbucks.
Exactly.
Thanks, Jer. Take care.
Thank you.
So, Kim, how did it feel talking to Jerry Hayes, who just took over your role in bee culture? That's probably kind of a cool, fun, weird feeling.
Well, it was. The thing is that I was with him for a year when he started, and I haven't gone that far, and I probably see him a couple of times a month minimum, and so we're not that far apart, and it's a really good relationship. He's got questions about how did you handle this, because things come up only once in a while that you haven't had to do before. So he considers himself lucky that he's got somebody around who was there the last time this happened, and was able to take care of it. Maybe not even successfully, but at least the experience. So yeah, we get along really well.
That's good.
We get together every once in a while. So he's one of the few people in the world I can talk to about the job he has and I had. There aren't a whole lot of bee magazine editors floating around.
No, they're not.
We've got Eugene over at the American Bee Journal, but he's way over in three states away. That's nice. I like being able to do that, and it has taken away a lot of the separation anxiety I was anticipating, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, and just so that folks know, and we have tried to get Joe Graham on the show too.
Yeah, he's in his traveler trailer, not at home, having a good time,
enjoying
which is
life.
okay.
Yeah, I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. All right, well, that about wraps it up for this episode. Before we go, I want to encourage our listeners to rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or wherever you download and stream the show. Your vote helps other beekeepers find us quicker. Even better, write a review and let other beekeepers looking for a new podcast know what you like. You can get there directly from our website by clicking on reviews along the top of any webpage. As always, we thank Bee Culture, the magazine for American beekeeping, for their continued support of Beekeeping Today podcast. We want to thank our regular episode sponsor, Global Patties. Check them out at www.globalpatties.com. We also want to thank Strong Microbials for the support of this podcast. Check out their full probiotic line at www.strongmicrobials.com. We want to thank Better Bee for joining us as the latest supporter. Check out their supplies at www.betterbee.com. And finally, and most importantly, we want to thank you, the Beekeeping Today podcast listener, for joining us on this show. Feel free to send us questions and comments at questions@beekeepingtodaypodcast.com. We'd love to hear from you. Anything else, Kim?
Well, I'll just reinforce what you just said. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, send us those emails. Thanks a lot.
Take it easy, Jeff.